Hey everyone, this is Jay with Mana Beast here, and I'm here to go over a review for an updated version on Red Ruthless Ginyu. Now, in my previous video, I discussed a lot about the context of each card and how they synergize with one another. I'll do a little bit of that with the new cards that have been introduced in the deck, and I'm also going to go over my evaluation over locals that I've attended with on with this deck, as well as my interactions with players for fun, for test plays purposes, to see how this deck can be improved. This deck, as an overall review on my side, this deck is great. I actually feel comfortable to take this deck to a local, not just the locals, but to a regionals, and feel that I would do fairly well to top. I think that the capability of me topping with this deck is actually fairly good, given to what decks currently exist in the meta. And I can say that with comfort because I've done all sorts of testing with all sorts of decks that are very common in the competitive play. So let me go over a little bit of the deck and how the deck works. So the idea is you're entering combat, you're forcing your opponent to skip, you're dealing damage, and then you're essentially ending the combat. You're dealing so much damage because you're retaining so much value on actions due to Captain Ginyu's ability to cycle out allies or cycle in allies from his level 1, maybe level 2, but you're often never going to get to level 2. So as a whole, this deck is a survival based deck. I don't think you can win by MPPV with this deck. I'm just going to throw that out there. The possibility of you doing that is not very likely. So strictly a survival deck. Now, going over to the Mastery, something to really keep in mind. The +2 stage of damage is not something, as far as a modifier goes, that you're going to take advantage of in this game. You don't have a lot of styled physicals. I think in this deck, the new updated version, you're only running 2, maybe 3. So you're not going to benefit off of this +2 stages. I'm just going to say that now. Why are you banishing a card in the first place? You're doing it so you can set yourself up to have a card on the top of your discard pile, which may happen to be the second card to be on the top of your discard pile, to be able to be used for your power, which is to reveal a style card and use that card that's on top of your discard pile. So this is exactly what the Red Ruthless Mastery provides to you as a player when you're playing this deck, and that's what allows you to do so well in each of your combats. Now, I'm going to go through and start talking about my allies. So in my original build, I discussed about Jiece, Guldo, and Nappa. I did say I wanted Android 13 in the deck. I did find a way to add him in the deck, and I don't regret him being in the deck at all. So Android 13 is now the new ally that's been introduced in the deck. And just to let you guys know, if you want to know what the deck looked like the original build, just take a look at the previous video when I first introduced the deck in the first place. And that would probably help with identifying what cards were changed out, if there's any confusion. I'll even identify here in the video so that there's extra information provided to you guys to help you out. So I'm going to get into these cards now. Now, these are all non-styled cards. These are just one of the handful of non-styled cards that the deck has. The reason why I wanted to break this out by non-styled cards was to show you how many non-styled cards are in this deck and how relevant it is to have styled cards in the deck. I believe there's a total of 25 non-styled cards, and that includes the allies and the Dragon Ball. So it's not bad, although it does seem a bit high. However, the deck has been working perfectly fine for me. So just wanted to throw that out there for you guys who may be asking how many non-styled cards are in the deck. You have roughly 25. Alright, so we have your Earth Dragonball 7. It's a combat ender. It goes with the theme. Villainous Powerball is just an amazing card. It's been helping me out so much where I'm in combats that I can't I'm not prepared for. There's going to be times when your opponent's going to enter combat onto you, and the Villainous Powerball is just that extra tool to prevent some damage coming your way, so you can maintain yourself for a future combat to come in and try to overwhelm your opponent to, I guess, balance out the difference between your life deck and theirs. Allied Blitz, I love this card. I have seen myself cutting it down to 2, but I don't have a very good reason to do it. And in reality, people undervalue Allied Blitz quite often because it's just a measly energy for 3 life cards, but the secondary and the hit effect are so good that it doesn't even matter what the damage output is. The fact that you're making them skip for every energy you're performing, and then you potentially have a way to end combat, just allows you to really retain so much value by making them lose cards where you are not losing any cards. And if anything, you're probably adding a card because you're using maybe the mastery to replenish certain cards on top of your discard pile. So very good card. I mean, I don't regret putting it at a 3 of, and the endurance is always nice. Overpowering Attack. You know, interesting enough, I didn't run this card in the first build. I did it because I was only running 3 allies at the time, and I felt like the utility of getting allies was not necessary. Although there have been many cases where I wanted the Guldo or the Jiece to perform any action or so on and so forth, and having the extra stages on top of this was always very useful. So I will say that in terms of its utility and its versatility with damage, that it works well with Allied Blitz. It does do a lot of usefulness for what you're wanting to accomplish, even though it's a non-styled card. So now I run it as a 3 of, and I don't regret that decision whatsoever. Playful Punch. It's interesting because this is a card that people often go to with Ginyu because his level 4 is always in category A, so always less than 5,000. Therefore, it is a potential non-styled Omni block. I love it. The card itself does provide you the stage gain. It does have a little bit of anger control, and worst case scenario, it's a physical for 3 life. Quite nice. It can be modified by Guldo. It really depends on how you want to better use this card for what it's worth. So I still play Playful Punch now. I still have it as a 3 of. I worked my way up to 3, started at 2, and then kind of went to 3. I don't regret this decision whatsoever, and I think that playing 3 of is almost necessary. So 3 Playful Punch. Now going to the very last 4 cards of this row. Blinding Energy move, it's pretty standard. It's a combat ender and part of the theme of the deck. Villainous Energy Sphere. I still feel like a 3 of is necessary. 3 of is necessary because of timing. I would rather not have a Combined Blast, but instead have a Sphere, because if I lead in with a Combined Blast, then I miss out on leading in with an Allied Blitz, or I miss leading in with a Red Tandem Blast. I would rather just start off with the Villainous Energy. I would rather start off with the Allied Blitz or a card and then Villainous Sphere if something in response to that was to prevent it from happening, or if I Allied Blitz and they are going to respond thereafter with a Stare Down or a Sphere, maybe even an Unleashed, I could Sphere it accordingly. I think you should really evaluate Sphere as a backup card. If for whatever reason they perform the next action after your Allied Blitz and it happens to be something that has nothing to do with affecting you, then, well, you just save the Sphere for another rainy day, in my opinion. And you could just then combo off and then potentially end combat. And it goes back to what I said about how the deck does a great job in forcing your opponent to do something as their next action. If they don't have anything that's useful to them, that's going to help them overwhelm you or to catch you by surprise, then you pretty much just got a free combat in a way. And I've actually had that happen on several cases where my opponent would use an ability to get an extra card in hand, or they would use a drill power to gain anger, or they would do something, and it would be non-impacting to you, so you just get away with doing a bunch of damage and then ending combat. It's quite annoying, if I do say so myself. I play the deck and I think it's quite annoying. So that is Villainous Energy Sphere in a nutshell. Visiting the Past, again, it is a great card for this deck, specifically because you can quite often enter combat with Visiting and have no regrets, because having the combo pieces to enter combat, make them skip, and combat, so huge. I've even seen myself Visiting for a Premonition, and then my hand was literally a Sphere, a Premonition, and a Allied Blitz, and oh my gosh, like it was amazing of a combat. I entered, I Allied Blitz, he Sphere, he tries to confrontation me, I Stare Down, and then I just went off. I go from there, I do, my next energy attack was just I think it was a red static shot. So I static shot, then I used the mastery to static shot again, then I used my level 1 Ginyu, and then I used Jiece and 13, and then I end combat. It was amazing. It was just flat out amazing how much damage I did that combat. So again, you could do so many nutty things with this deck, and Time is Warrior's Tool is pretty much a generic Omni block. There's no reason not to run it, so I do. And that is all I have to say about that. Oh. Moving on. There we go. Okay, so what you're going to see here is a lot of changes. So Red Collision is one of the new changes. I really don't like this card. I really don't. You could see how desperate I was to fill in cards that were useful. The fact that the hit effect says search for an attack card and place it on top is always nice, because that's a potential search. That's a potential search for Blinding Energy move, which is very useful. And the Raising Anger is not bad. Physical for AT +3. It does get the +2 from the Mastery if you happen to banish a styled card. Sometimes it varies to non-styled cards as well. So Red Collision, it's an okay card. I could see myself cutting that card out for something else. Red Energy Shield, again, it's a block that can banish after use, and it can gain me stages. Why not run it? It's a solid card, especially with like Vegeta running around, that you can only run stop cards with energy combat cards. It's nice to have just in case. Red Stylish Entrance, you know, I thought this was the bread and butter of the deck, and then I decided to cut it down to 2. And actually, surprise, surprise, when I took this deck to a locals, I didn't even have Stylish Entrance in the deck, and it still did well. So I felt like that was necessary for me to see the card for what it was worth, if it was really that much of a necessity in the deck. And I still run the deck, I still run the card because it's such a great surprise factor. I've actually had situations where I put it on top of the discard pile to get the extra draw, or I would enter combat, and then them not having any setups, I would have a Nappa in play, Red Stylish Entrance to shut off the Nappa, and then use the Relaxation, the Visiting, and all sorts of stuff, because maybe they didn't prepare prior. It even happened the other way around. I held onto the Stylish Entrance, it shut off Nappa, and then I triggered all 3 red Relaxations, and they were just so caught off guard. So again, it's a rather good card. It's not the best to play, easy to play I should say, so I'm gonna say this right now, you could totally take it out, and Red Energy Shield for that matter. These 6 cards, I'll tell you right now, I could see these cards easily being replaced by something else. I'm just throwing that out there. Maybe it's a better card from set 8, or maybe it's a more utility card that is introduced in the deck. But these are the only 6 cards that really have like fluff room, if you will, for how to improve the deck. Okay. Next on my list is Red Energy Blast. Now, why the heck would we run this card? Well, we run it because allies are a thing now. People are playing allies. People are playing drills. Orange is a thing too. So, Red Energy Blast, not bad. I've even Red Energy Blast my Hidden Power Drill, and I've Red Energy Blast my Nappa sometimes, just so I can be ready for the next combat, especially if they've entered onto me. So there's so much stuff that you can do with this card, and the Raising of Anger is always nice. I could actually see myself running 3 of, but as of right now, I'm only running 2, and I'll see where that kind of goes. Red Freezing Beam, oh my god, this card is amazing. The reason why I never played this card was because the damage output was so mediocre. Banish after use, so it doesn't affect your discard pile, has 1 endurance, it searches for a drill, not restricted by style. So I can get the Hidden Power Drill, I do it, pay the stages, get stages back, it does energy for AT +3, or AT +2, potentially 3 if you're in C and they're in C, and so on and so forth. So it's quite nice as far as a card for utility purposes. That's why I just had to run it. It's also a great way to make Red Retreat, which is the next card, a more active card, because it puts the drill in play, so then I could just Red Retreat right afterwards. So, solid card, it's doing great stuff, and I'm glad that I put it in the deck. Red Retreat, you get the idea about that. It searches for a Hidden Power Drill and Forward Stance Drill. The Hidden Power Drill, oh man, so much of a surprise factor. People don't realize, oh, you're going to just set stages and then banish it. Brilliant idea. And yeah, as far as the drill package goes for these guys here, again, these are great drills. I could see you putting additional drills if you want more targets for Red Retreat. I could see you putting a 3rd Hidden Power Drill. Or not a 3rd, a 2nd Hidden Power Drill, I should say. Shoot, like I wouldn't mind putting 3 to be honest, but the non-styled is kind of a factor there. I probably see myself putting in a 2nd one, but as of right now, I think the deck works just fine without it. So, okay. We have here a Red Premonition. Red Premonition is just so good. Oh man, like I rarely place it in play. I rarely do. In the case that I do, I probably jump to 2, if I have a floating allied blitz, that'd be kind of cool, because then I can use 2 to search for an ally, go to 1 with Premonition, and then just keep going. And doing more attacks with potentially my allies, because I would have the low enough stages to make it work. So, good card. Red stop, banish after use, searches for red forward stance drill. Great. Static shot, again, unpreventable damage. I know it doesn't work a lot with all my other styled energy attacks, but nonetheless, by itself is a critical and it gains 2 anger. I couldn't ask for more. It's a pretty damn good solid card. Red Training Burst. Such a good card. Even if it doesn't hit, the fact that it rearranges is so good, and it's banished after use. So again, very solid card for the theme of the deck. I feel like it's necessary. And Red Tandem Blast, oh my gosh, like at my locals, this card was my MVP. This card on top of, what else? Blinding Energy Move, of course, or Red Retreat, and that's tough. I think those would be my MVP cards, to be honest. I'm sure there's others I'm not thinking about, but this card just, so much memory, so much value in Red Tandem Blast. And I always knew that it was a really good card, but it's even better in this particular format because of how many non-style cards there are. That's why. In the previous sets, arguably, there were just not as many non-style cards. Nowadays, there are, and Goku and Vegeta do not like that. Red Explosion, this card is amazing. And by the way, actually, this is a good MVP card. Right here, this card right here is just an amazing MVP card, because I could just Red Explosion, Premonition, go into Red Retreat, and combat. Or I can Red Explosion, then Blinding Energy Move. I mean, it's just annoying. This card alone is just fucking annoying. The fact that they can skip their action, even if they stop it, they'll lose 2 stages. That's not a big deal. If I have Empower Drill in play, that actually does matter. So, FYI. And the last card is Red Relaxation. No explanation there. Hand advantage, crit, gaining stages, well, yada yada yada. Great card. And with that all said, that is the deck. That is the Ruthless Ginyu deck updated. I think this deck can be very good in a regional. I think it'd be very good in locals. You guys should really try this out. This deck is amazing. Now, I will say this. When I took this deck to my locals, I went 3-1. Okay? My first match was an Ascension Vegeta. So as you can imagine, I would enter combat, make them skip, end combat, they gain an anger. He did advance to 2 at one point, which was kind of annoying, but I had the blinding. So that was the thing. I don't even know if pass or skip ties to ball 7. I think it does, but I had the blinding, so it was okay. And then I was able to just overwhelm my opponent with attacks, deal enough damage to then inevitably cause them to deck out. Great. Round 2, I played Blue, Resolute, Goku. And the pilot of this deck was Morgan from the Dragon Ball Radio. And with the deck that he played, it's your typical blue Goku deck. There was really nothing out of the ordinary. It had your Kaiokens, it had your Unleashes, it had all sorts of stuff that levels, forcing him to get to 4, to abuse cards, yada yada yada. And Red Tandem Blast was just an amazing card against that deck. I mean, there were just combats where he just couldn't do anything, and he was just frustrated. I couldn't blame him either, because I've played Orange Goku, I've played Saiyan Goku, I've played Blue Goku, all the Draw Goku too, all of them. Still was able to win. With this deck, because I just take advantage of combats by forcing them to skip, and ending combat, they just don't see it. Plus the draw card from their level 1 actually kind of hurts them, because now they're losing that extra card, and it helps me with what I'm trying to accomplish. So that's. And round 3, I played Orange Trunks, and this is actually who I lost to, but given to the new updates to the deck, I actually did not run Energy Blast before, but then after running that deck, it made me realize I should use this card. Worst case scenario, I can target it on myself. I could also target other allies and other ally decks, which do exist. So this is not a card that was specific towards the orange deck. This was a card that was really specific towards what I need in the deck for potential utility in the future. So I think this deck can beat the Orange Trunks deck. I would have to play against it more often, but I do think that it can beat it. So I wouldn't feel so disturbed over that loss, because actually it was a really good learning experience, and I'll tell you this, like, I still feel comfortable playing this deck either way. So there's that. My round 4, I played Saiyan Dynamic Goku. So again, I played these decks before. I was able to win, making them enter, making them pass, or skip, making them, forcing the end combat, and overwhelm my opponent. And that was my report, essentially, for my locals. This deck is good. You guys really should give this deck a try. I mean, a lot of you are talking about how, oh, well, there's no more creativity. This deck is the epitome of creativity. 2017, you're freaking welcome, guys. I take more than enough pride to make this deck really well. And I'll tell you this, you can't just do this with every deck. I know this from bad experiences with other MPs. I mean, they're like, it's hard to make Nappa a broken deck, you know. It's hard to make a lot of these MPs who just don't retain value. It's even difficult to make Lord Slug broken. I mean, let me reiterate. He is very good right now with Namekian and the Mastery. I get it. And Ball Victory. That is no question, no doubt, none of that. The problem is he himself doesn't really add extra fuel. The only additional fuel that he adds is his name cards. His main personality, nothing. I am not using a single name card of Ginyu's, and Ginyu alone is doing most of the work that I need him to do. I mean, that just kind of shows you where value is coming from and how to evaluate the value that each card is giving you, including main personalities, including masteries, including name cards. So I just want to throw that out there, that this deck was piloted off of what did do well in the past. So it is what caused me to want to build the deck in the first place, because there is actual data where this deck was good in the past. It was good and it was relevant at the time, and I see a build that it can prosper in. So, or prosper in. Me and words are hard. Either way, this is the deck, and I have here a list of cards that I want to go over. Before I do that though, I just want to make sure I mention this. These 6 cards, I could see them being replaced for just about anything. You don't necessarily need these cards, but they're sure as hell nice. Actually, in my test against my locals, I didn't even run Stylish Entrance. I ran, in their place, I ran a 3rd Energy Shield and a 3rd Red Collision. Also, the Red Energy Burst did not exist in the deck. Instead, it was a Red Hurl, which is an energy, cost 1 stage, does 4 life, gain 1 anger, hit, rejuvenate 2. To me, it was an easy switch, because to me, the energy attack, I mean, I just threw it in there. I thought, oh, Rejuve, that's nice, you know. That's really it. So, Energy Blast instead, and that's how I got 3-in-1. I feel like this updated version can actually see a lot of value and would still do really well. So let me go over some of these cards over here that have been considered but haven't been added. Potential cards that could be added to side decking. You would get the gist. Red Hurl was the card I was referring to. No need to explain. Red Disregard. I would have loved this card if it was banished after use, but it is not, which kind of sucks. Nonetheless, it was considerable, because if I can't rearrange, then I can banish and force cards on top. So that's another way of manipulating the discard pile. Red Heal, you know, it's a physical. It does search for specific style attacks, but I just don't see the reason to get it in the deck right now, so I just haven't added it. Red Heating Beams, it was a great card to consider at first to give me hand advantage to make myself more aggressive by drawing into good key cards. I just don't want to rely on the draw. So I just decided to not run this card, and I honestly don't want to feel like I'm valuing this card over Forward Stance Drill, especially. So that's why I'm not running the card. And Red Collision, Red Shield, these were the 2 cards I took out in place of the 2 Stylish Entrance, so that explains that. Red Lift Bolt, I just think it's too expensive. Banish After Use is nice. You could set this up to be great for whatever you rejuve if you pass combat, right? Or pass turn, I should say. But it's too expensive. I don't think it's necessary, so I don't run it. Red Blazing Aura. The concept was pretty clean. If you're not running as many blocks, then why not run Red Blazing Aura, right? Because it's mitigating damage. The problem is, because of Ox King, yes, Ox King works against this. It kind of makes it less appealing to want to run it, so I don't. And that's it for that. Red Smash. Red Smash. Very mediocre attack damage. Again, very utility based. Banish any amount of cards. Look at the top 3. Yada yada yada. It's not that amazing. It's just a utility card for the purposes of this deck, so I don't bother with it personally. Red Frenzy Blast and Red Departing Shot I tried running, and again, this was when I wanted to go for a more anger build. Decided against it now, so I just replaced them. They are mediocre damages. I mean, gaining anger is great for if you have something else that adds additional value. You could still make a deck that has energy cards like this that gain anger and do well, but you would have to make it some sort of anger build. And I feel like with Ginyu, I went with more of a survival personal preference. You could probably do it in other ways, but that's just me personally, so that takes care of that. Okay, so we have Despair Drill. Again, I don't feel like this drill stays in play long enough for me to use it for its full advantage, so I don't bother with it. You could potentially pull this with a Red Freezing Beam. That's a possibility, but even then it's per attacks that you performed. So if you've already performed it, then you don't get the plus X for the Spare Drill. Either way, it's an okay card. I mean, it's not terrible. Maybe consider in the future. Who knows? Red Dazing Drill, again, it goes with the theme of you lower your anger, they skip, and then you keep going. This gives you flexibility to not have to do an energy attack with the loop of Allied Blitz to still make them skip. But the problem is, again, it never stays in play long enough for it to be used. Even if I banished it from Red Retreat, putting a Red Blaze in my hand is almost unnecessary. So, if anything, it messes me up because it forces more cards on top of the discard pile, which I may have a very specific orientation of how it's already set up. So, that takes care of that. Red Embarrassing Drill, again, it doesn't stay in play long enough to be used. Great card, just not worth it. Red Flourish, actually, I think this card depends on the meta. If there's a lot more Dragon Balls than allies, which you could argue that there are a fair amount, Red Flourish would do really well. It doesn't even matter how much you deal or dealt, you just start getting rid of allies. Not bad. It's really not bad. So maybe in the future. Right now, just not. Red Examination Drill, it's a control card. I get the combo. Red Retreat, Examination, lower anger 2, destroy a drill or setup, yada yada yada. It's just not necessary, so I don't bother with it. You could even do cool things like Red Freezing Beam into Examination Drill. That's cute too. So, but nah, not really. Acquisition Drill. Now this is an interesting card. If you're against a very drill heavy deck, which again, if drill starts surpassing everybody's expectations, maybe this is a card to consider. But Acquisition into Red Retreat is quite nice. Acquisition into, or Freezing Beam into Acquisition Drill, also quite nice. So stealing some of their key drills, getting advantage over combats. Again, it's a considerable option given what it's capable of doing. And that is everything that I wanted to go over with you guys. So I have taken so much time looking into this deck. I've taken about 2 weeks to really test it thoroughly, build the deck, and come up with this final build that I feel is very acceptable for a regional test-worthy environment. I think that the surprise factor is rather good because nobody's going to foresee what you're going to do or what the cards will hold on to specifically. It really puts them on an awkward position. If they start going defensive and putting blocks, that's great. Problem is, it's not going to guarantee them a win. I've seen it before. By them being overly passive, they're not going to do anything. Defensiveness does not equate to offensiveness in this game, up as of right now. But with this deck, you could totally take advantage of that. So feel free to leave a like, comment, and let us know what you think about this deck. If you want to try it out and you have any questions, feel free to message me and I will gladly answer any of your questions. Thank you so much, guys. This is Jay with Mana Beast, and you guys have a wonderful day, have a wonderful new year, and hope that your New Year's resolutions can be fulfilled as much as mine will as well. See you guys later. Have a great time. Bye-bye.